welcome back to the next lesson. We taught you in the beginning about how to make beads with the skew chisel and how to make beads with the shallow fluted gouge. Well, there's a lot of other ways to do it too. And today's video is about bead making with some less traditional tools, some that you can make yourself. So let me show you first of all what I mean about the various different kinds of tools. We'll take a look at some I've already prepared here. And so if we look on the left side, this is a bead that's been made with a tool shaped like this. And the tool goes in and it scrapes and you roll, the points come in and cut. And it creates a fairly deep, symmetrical bead. However, these fingers have a tendency to tear at the wood fibers. Another brand of commercial gouge for doing beads looks like this. And it's used upside down. And it's laid and the points are rolled in. And in various different sizes, it makes a nice symmetrical bead that's level with the surface. The one over in the end has been made with a gouge that we ground right here in class. We took a spindle gouge, a shallow fluted gouge, ground the back edge, turned it upside down, and used it to rock in here to create this one, another deeper one, but fairly cleanly cut. The shallow ones here, with no deep grooves on either side, were made by what's called a pyramid tool or a diamond point tool. And the point goes in, creates a groove, and then by pulling the handle out and rotating horizontally, it creates this. It can do any size, even little tiny shallow ones like this. So let's quickly take a look at some of these. Then I'm going to show you how to use them. And then for this particular tool and this tool, I'm going to show you how to make them. So let's step back to the table and take a closer look at this set of various beading tools. Well, we step back to the table, and I want to give you a closer look at the ones I just showed you on the spindle. And then what we're going to do is go sharpen a representative of each of these different types. This is the one that comes from Robert Sorby, and it's shaped like a bead, and these two fingers then cut into the wood, and by rocking it back and forth while it's flat, it'll cut through the fibers. It has a tendency, because we're cutting on spindles like this, to leave a little bit of tear out if it's not perfectly sharpened. This is one that you're never going to touch the shape of the tool. You're going to sharpen it only one particular way, and that's to use your credit card, lay it flat on the surface, and stroke the face. If you put it inside the flute of this in any manner, you're going to change the shape of the tool. So these are always sharpened like that. So you're basically just bringing up this top edge again. So this is the one type of tool that basically slices through the fibers in, I'm going to say, a tearing kind of a motion. This brand, and let me show you the largest one first because it's easier to see. This is one from D-Way Tools, and these points now are used down like this. And again, it's rocked, but we tend to cut the fibers more with this one. Sharpening on this one is simply taking this face, laying it against our grinding wheel, and a slight touch here. Again, we don't touch any side inside the flute at all. It's available in a lot of different sizes. Here's a smaller version of the same one. Here's an even smaller one. This one, when I use it, I tend never to put a handle on it. The cut is so light that I really have good motion with my fingers to manage it. This is a commercial pyramid tool or diamond point tool. This is from Henry Taylor, and it works just fine. I would prefer the handles to be shorter because I'm working in tight on the spindle and long handles tend to get in my way. This is sharpened on the grinder, and I'll take you up there and show you in a minute how to do that. Hamlet's is a little bit shorter handle. The ones I make for the classroom have really short handles. And again, I'm manipulating it very tight to my body, and this short handle is good. At home, my version of it, I don't even have a handle on it. It seems to do the job just fine for me. These are sharpened at the grinder also, and we'll show you that in a second. This tool that I used earlier was a shallow fluted gouge at one point in time. It got pretty short, and so we converted it into a beading tool. And all we did was to go to the bevel on the back and grind it back straight across and flat. Then the tool is used upside down with these two fingers digging in, very much like this tool did. That was a shallow fluted gouge. This was a small 1/8" bowl gouge, ground the same way, used the same way. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but if you look at this flute, you'll see that this is not symmetrical like a U shape, but it's parabolic, like the shape of the bowl gouge was designed to be in the first place. So this is not going to give you a symmetrical bead in the same sense. If you're going to convert a bowl gouge into a beading tool, you want to find one that has a U-shaped flute. Not too many around, but if you have one, when the handle is short enough and the blade is short enough, it makes a nice tool. So I want to take you to the grinder and sharpen each of these tools. So let's step up to the other end of the classroom and take a look at the sharpening techniques, and then we'll go use them. Well, we stepped over to the grinder, and I'm going to show you how we sharpen each of these tools other than the one I used the card on. I'm going to use this particular wheel because this is preset for one of the tools we have here at the studio. Looks like we've got a little bit of embedded metal fibers from the last time it must have been used. So the first thing I'm going to do is clean the wheel, get a nice sharp surface to work with. And that should do it. First tool I want to show you how I sharpen is the DOA beading tool. Remember, it's used in this direction like this. But what we do is we do grind this surface here. It comes in a lot of different sizes, but it's going to be easier to show you on the larger one because you'll be able to see it easier. I'm going to use the platform only to rest my hand on. I'll lay the tool against the wheel, heel first. I'll bring it up until the whole bevel touches the wheel. And I'm watching for sparks. One of the ways to know when you get to an edge is when the sparks begin to come over the top. And I'm specifically interested in when the sparks come over these two top corners, because that's the one that digs into the wood first. So I'm going to do this tool and the same technique for the other ones. Up to speed. Heel against the wheel. Up. That's it. I didn't touch this back part of the bevel, but it doesn't matter. These two fingers are what touches the wood and does the cutting. Heel. I hope you can see those sparks, because I'm seeing them come over the top of these two tips, which means I have gotten those ground. And if you look at it on the back side, I can see shining all the way up to the very top of that point on both sides, and that's important. The smaller one will be done the same way. You won't be able to see it as easily, but it's the same. Heel. Tough. And what I did was none of this, but I held it square and waited for the sparks to begin to come over these points. Now our diamond point tool is done the same way. And when you have one of these, you probably do not have a fixture to sharpen it with. So you're going to have to figure out how to hold this, get this flat against the wheel, and watch for sparks to come over both sides. So it looks like this. Heel. Toe. That's one face. Let it rest against the wheel. 2. What I was watching all the time was to see that sparks were coming over either side of the face that was up, all the way to the very tip. No, I didn't get it ground really nice back here, it doesn't matter. But these edges are sharp, this point is right in the center, and that tool is ready to go. The last one's one of the easiest ones to sharpen. That is this converted shallow fluted gouge that has been made into a beading tool. Remember, we ground it originally with a nice rounded bevel for spindle work, but now I'm going to grind it flat. I'm simply going to lay it against the wheel, raise it up, look for sparks to come over those edges, and this back surface is flat, matches the radius of the wheel, but it's used in this posture. And so these two corners are touching the wood, and that's what does the cut. Well, let's go back to the lathe again, and let me show you the making of cuts with each of these tools. Back at the lathe. And what we're going to do now is I want to show you how to make beads with each of these different tools. This is the Sorby beading tool. It's not one of my preferred tools because it does go in and tear at the fibers a little bit. I've raised the tool rest a little higher than I would use if I was using a gouge, and so I can be up here in this surface. I'm going to lay the tool on the tool rest, and I'm going to literally walk these 2 points in like this, back and forth, pivoting around that center. This will cut in. These sides will then have to open up a wider groove like we did last time. So let me show you that. On the tool rest, and you have to walk it back and forth. Now what's happening here, we're digging in, we've got both sides, but this piece in the center is flat. Until it's round, conform to the shape of this tool, we haven't finished our bead. Now the corners are beginning to round off a little bit. And I can see in the center, it's still not touching yet. Getting close. It looks like a bead, but it's flat in the center. That's not a bead yet. Almost. There, okay. I see it's round all the way. So what we've done with this particular tool, because of the sides, it's had to open up a groove. So it's good for beads like this, but it does leave space. If that's what you want, that's fine. Next tool I want to show you is the one that's made by D-Way. I'm going to show you the larger one first because it's easier to see, and then I'll do the smaller one. It's used in the same manner, points down, little rocking motion. But because the sides are narrower, I don't leave as much of a groove here. Blades down. And I'm just rocking it back and forth. And there it is. So I've got the same kind of bead. This is almost the same size. I got there a little faster. The amount of wood wasted on either side of the bead is less. Smaller tool, which I happen to have a handle on, works exactly the same way. Flute is down. Rock, left, right, rock. And with a smaller tool, the amount of wood wasted on each side is less, and I got to the bead much more rapidly. Similarly, this modified spindle gouge will do a similar job. Flute is down. I'm going to rock it back and forth. Because there's metal on both sides here, a little fatter, I'm going to leave more of a gap like these, less like that. A little rocking. There's my bead, and you see I have more space on either side because there's more metal on each side that has to clear a path. The diamond point. This is a fun tool for me. I find this makes the best beads. I can make larger ones and smaller ones. The tendency is to misuse this tool. It's perceived that it cuts as it goes in. It does not. It cuts as it's pulled out of the wood. Let me show you. I'm going to identify the left side, make a big one first, and the right side of the same bead. And I did that by just pushing in with a flat up. Now I'm going to go back to the left side, and I'm going to pull out and roll the tool. That's half a bead. Now I'm going to roll the tool the other direction, flat. So the cut is coming out until one of these wings is horizontal, in other words, at the top of the bead. So that's a fairly large one. Same tool, I can make very small ones. Same process, left side, right side. There's no clearance on either side. So I can make some pretty small ones. This is really good for doing, let's say, a platter, where I'm going cross grain at some point and with the grain someplace else. It's a good tool for making beads on the rim of a platter. Here's a bigger one, commercial. I tend to like this less because it's bigger, and you saw how I have to manipulate it around, and I worry about the clearance. Well, these kind of tools can be bought. These kind of tools can be made. So I suggest if you have a bowl or spindle gouge, okay, deep fluted or shallow fluted gouge, that simply by grinding that back bevel, I can convert this into a beading tool. It's probably best done when the tool's gotten very, very short so that the shaft is pretty stiff. You might even consider sharpening the handle if that's convenient. So that's an easy conversion. The one that's most frequently used, the one that we use here in the classroom a lot, is these diamond point tools, and a very simple tool to make. So let's step back to the table real quick, and I'm going to show you the process of setting up to grind this tri-point on the thing accurately. Back at the back table, I want to show you how I make my diamond point tools. This is mine from home. It's 3/8, could be 1/4 inch, could be any diameter you want. Mine doesn't have a handle on it, I just never put one on it. But to get these facets exactly at 120 degrees apart, let me show you how I do that. Start out with a piece of tool steel. I made a fixture. It's a triangle. It has a hole right in the center that this shaft fits through, and has a set screw on one side to lock it so it won't slide. I have another fixture, and this says that the length of the tool is set here. I come along with my Allen and tighten that. So when I go to the grinder, I set this triangle on the back of the platform and sharpen one face. Rotate 120 degrees, sharpen a second face, and a third face. And I can keep going back around over and over again until I come up to a point. Now the length of this, whether it's short, blunt in other words, or long, is a matter of how long this shaft is. It's also a matter of how far up on the wheel you choose to grind it. So this is set for the ones I produce. I use the back of the platform on the one-way fixture. 3 shirts like that. If you don't want to make something like this, take a hex nut. Drill a hole through one face of the hex nut, put a set screw in it. Hex nut, every other face is 120 degrees. So I hit on one face, click, click, 120, click, click, 120 degrees. So a nut will work equally well if you can put some means in there to lock it so it doesn't slide in and out. So I'm going to go to the grinder. We're going to finish up today with me starting this shaft, trying to get it down to this. There's some time involved, a little bit of grinding time. These tools could be hardened if you want to, and many times the tools I do, I take this tool, I heat it to cherry red till it's non-magnetic, dip it immediately into some peanut oil, which then sets the hardness, clean it up a little bit, and we have a tool that's hardened and will last for a very, very long time. So off to the grinder, and we'll see you in the next lesson. Got my piece here. I'm going to rest it against the back edge of this platform and just keep going around. I count the number of strokes and then rotate, so I do it the same on all three facets. I keep going until there is no triangle on the end. It disappears into a single point. So I've got some grinding to do. It's a tedious process. Very close. The closer you get to the point, the longer it takes. Still see it, but barely.
Mm-hmm.